Welcome to The Art of Medicine, the program that explores the arts, business, and clinical aspects of the practice of medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Wilner. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Nneka Unachukwu, better known as Dr. Una. Dr. Una is a board-certified pediatrician who found a way to make her private practice not only profitable, but fulfilling. She now helps other physicians to succeed as entrepreneurs with her company, EntreMD. She's also the author of a new book, The Profitable Private Practice Playbook. I'm looking forward to learning all about it. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, locumstory.com. Maybe you're curious about locums and how it might fit into your career story, but you know all the different reasons physicians choose locums and how it works for them? At locumstory.com, you can hear firsthand stories as diverse as physicians themselves. There's not one solution for everyone. The variety of opportunities might surprise you. Locum Story is an unbiased educational resource. It has tools that let you explore trends in your specialty and compare different locums agencies. There's even a simple quiz to see if locums is right for you. Do your own research at locumstory.com. It's easy. And now to my guest. Welcome, Dr. Una.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about the conversation we're going to have.
Well, we're going to have fun. Dr. Una, I first heard about you on John Jerica's podcast. I think it was a couple years ago. And of course, he always interviews people about non-clinical careers. But also, for example, I've been on the show to talk about locum tenens, sort of non-traditional, I think is probably a better word, non-traditional ways of doing things so that you can do things better, that aren't the old mold, which in many cases doesn't work anymore. Now, you're a board certified pediatrician. And, whenever they make those charts of physician, earnings, the orthopedic surgeons and the neurosurgeons are always in the top, and neurologists like me are pretty close to the bottom. But what's even lower than I always have at least I'm not at the bottom. The pediatricians are always at the bottom. And that's because their job is the hardest, right? And that's why they get paid the least. I mean, what could be more difficult than seeing lots of healthy kids, some of whom aren't healthy, and you got to figure out which is the unhealthy one, and you got to get them to sit still. So somehow you found a way to do it. So that's what we're going to learn about today. So, okay. So a little bit about your background. How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, so I'll start from medical school because it's funny. When I was in medical school, people were like, "What are you going to do when you're done?" I'm like, "I have no idea, but I know it's not pediatrics." And so the joke is on me because I ended up in pediatrics. My first choice was to be an OBGYN, but I think I had some foresight that I would live 9 lives at the same time. And I was like, overnight call for the rest of my life is not going to cut it. So where else can I find the mommies? That's how I ended up in
Ah,
pediatrics.
okay.
Um, I went to medical school in the University of Nigeria. So that's where I did all my training and then moved over to New Jersey, did my pediatric residency. It was great. Got my first job as an attending. I was like, what? We've arrived. And this is important because for so many physicians, this is where we're going. And we finally get there. We're like, this is not where I planned to be at all. And so my first job was amazing.
Well, let me
I
stop.
worked,
Let me stop. What was disappointing about that job for you? Why
yeah.
wasn't it everything?
So the job itself was great. But on my first day, I walk in, I see the patient, I write my prescription, easy diagnosis, walk out, and I'm thinking I'd be excited.
Hmm.
But it was very anticlimactic because I said, okay, so what I just did, I'm gonna do that 25 times a day till I'm 70. I'm like, and that's it. And I remember thinking, even if I started off, stocking shelves at Walmart, I would do it for a few years. Then I could manage the people who are,
Hmm.
stocking the shelves, and then I could manage the managers. That like, there's some growth potential, but this is it.
Right. That is, and when you're a resident, I'm just gonna to sort of develop that a little bit because I did two residencies. I'm board certified in internal medicine, board certified in neurology. Then I did a fellowship, and it was all exciting because you're always learning. And of course, medicine, the art of medicine is something you learn all of your life, but there does come to be a point where you start to see things that you recognize immediately and the challenge and the spark of excitement that, wow, I've never seen that before. It's like, wow, I've actually seen that 25 times and I know what it is. So leaving that resonancy of constant challenge to early attending years, sometimes there's still a lot of challenges, but then it sort of it plateaus. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Um,
For me,
so
it was day one,
day one, it
first patient.
already plateaued.
And I was like, and I didn't, like now there's a lot of awareness of the different options. Like, you have this podcast, Dr. Jarika has there's a lot of conversation around it, but this was all I knew. And so I remember thinking there must be more. I had no concept of what more could be, but I was like, there has to be more. There has to be something else. And so I continued in the job because that's what we do. And somewhere 9 months down the line, my boss says, well, I've enjoyed working with you. Here's a 5-year contract. Because my
Mm,
initial contract was a year-long contract.
that's
And I
right.
said, in my mind, I said, I've been married for 3 years and I just finished a 3-year residency. Like my definition of forever is 3 years. And so, like I can't do a 5-year contract, but I was going to move anyway. So I said, I can't do the contract. My family, we do need to move. So I'm not going to be here after this year. And he says, so start a practice. I looked at him like he was nuts. I said, nobody starts a private practice a year out of residency. Like, this is not the way that works. And in case you've missed this ginormous bump, I'm pregnant. Like, this is not the time to do that. Like, what in the world? And he said, no, I mean, like, you're here running this practice by yourself. Like, I don't see patients here. He's like, your baby will need you a lot in the beginning. Your practice won't. And your baby will need you less as the baby gets older. Your practice will need you more. It's like perfect. And if you have questions and stuff, I'm happy to help. And so I will say ignorance is bliss because I believed him. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like I'm already doing everything I would need to do to start a practice. And so I started Googling like, pediatric practices. What do people like about them? What don't they like? And started formulating what I want my practice to look like. Started looking at locations. I could not even conceptualize a build out. I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm going to rent a building and then I'm going to pay to have it done. Like, what is this? What is going on here? You know, Unfortunately, we found a place that an OBGYN had just moved out from. So it was like perfectly set up. And so my philosophy was hang the shingle and they will come. And so I got the place, got the lease, signed some contracts, got my utilities and all, and hung the shingle. And to my shock, distress, and dismay, they did not come. And I remember being like a deer caught in a headlight. If I did not have that lease, if I did not have all these contracts, I probably would have walked away and said, forget it. I'll just go get a job. Like, I cannot do this. I'm an introvert. So I don't know what you guys are expecting me to do, you know? And I just remember feeling stuck. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm an introvert. I'm a professional. Professionals don't sell. I can't go talk to people and say, send my patients to me, your patients to me. Like, I can't talk. I can't network. I'm an introvert. And I remember doing this for a few months. And of course, no patients came. And then I read a book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog. And in the book, there's one line that said, all business skills are learnable. And I was like, hang on. So all this while I've been thinking that these people running great practices are just better than me, and I'm just not good at that. The end. I'm not thinking I could develop. I'm not thinking their skills. I just think they're great. I suck, and that's
Mm.
it. And I was like, I'm a physician. I may not know marketing. I may not know how to build a team. I may not know how to do anything, but I know how to learn. That I have down pat. It was so bad, Dr. Andrew, that when I started my practice, I answered my own phones. I had an alter ego. Her name was Ella. I'm like, thank you for calling Ivy League Pediatrics. This is Ella. Because I could not bring myself to hire a front desk person. Okay.
That's
So
great. That's
yeah,
great.
I mean, it was insane. I'd answer my own phones when they come in. I check them in. Yeah, I would do their vitals. I would do their, see them, then do their shots and everything. And when I'm done, build, because I could not bring myself to hire anybody. That's how bad it was. That's why when people tell me I'm not built for business, I'm like, forget it. If I can build a business, I think you're okay. So after I saw that line, then I saw everything I was afraid of or I was not good at as a project to learn. And so I
Hmm.
started learning how to build a referral base, learning how to market, learning how to hire properly, how to build company culture, and all of those things. And that was the beginning of a complete turnaround that hasn't ended. Like I've been growing since then. And so, we got the practice to where it was profitable. We got the practice to where it crossed seven figures. I fortunately, one of the books I read early on was, the E-Myth Physician. So I started thinking, how do I build this practice in such a way that it's not my job? It is a business entity that can work without me. My job is to build the
Hmm.
system, build the practice. And if I'm there, I'm not there, it doesn't matter. And so early on, I could not imagine another physician on my payroll, right? Like I couldn't imagine it. But I could hire somebody who could work a day or two a week. Like I could start from there. And so I hired a doc who worked, she did every Friday. And so here I am with a 4-day work week, a long weekend every weekend, a profitable practice. And it was just a really great time, And so this was all the way up to 2016. Now, 2016, there was nothing wrong. I wasn't burnt out. I wasn't, there's no issue. But I just had this sensing that medicine as we know it has fundamentally changed and it's not going back. And if all I know how to do is see patients, then I might be out of luck. Now, at the time of this record, it's probably a little difficult to think of it then, but then doctors never lost their jobs. Doctors were never fired. You know what I mean? Burnout was not a buzzword at the time. Things were very different. Um, like there were no minute clinics, I don't think, at that time. If they were just beta testing. We still kind of had monopoly in the healthcare space. Not that we tried to create it, but that's just the way it was. Amazon was not in healthcare. You know what I mean? And so at that time, I just had this thing like, you're going to need to learn to retool yourself. Like, this is the game. If you could not see patients, could you still have an impact on healthcare? Could you still generate an income? Like, what would you do?
Hmm.
And so I'm thinking, because I'm completely green, I didn't even know consulting coaching was a thing. I didn't know any of that. And I said, okay, well, I've started a practice. I could show other people how to do it. Okay. Like people earn money as speakers and writers. Maybe I can start developing that side of me. As like, I am the lead pediatrician in my practice, but I can become the CEO of my practice, which is a very different job. And so I started the process of retooling myself, reading books. Um, and then I said, I looked around, I was like, at the time, I was like, there are 800,000 physicians. We're all going to need to retool ourselves. This is not a me problem. This is an us problem. And that's really when EntreMD became a concept. Because I was like, if I spend 10 years figuring this out, it will be 10 years too late for so many people. So I haven't learned everything, but I've learned enough to help. And so we started EntreMD, initially started working with some people one-to-one. Um, and then after that, launched the EntreMD podcast. Then after that, started doing group programs and writing books. And now we're at a place where, we've helped them by the thousands, and really it's this concept of you're not stuck, you're not a tree, you're like Play-Doh, you can retool yourself, you can
Hmm.
reinvent yourself, and you can take back control of your career, whatever it is you want to do. Like, so for some people, they love their jobs. They love what they do. They want to practice forever. And I'm like, and that's fine, but you need to be in control. You need to become an entrepreneur, right? You need to be able to have conversations with a CMO and a CFO in ways that matter to them. Like you need to show them how your value affects the bottom line. Like, so you can negotiate like a boss. Nobody's gonna voluntarily offer you a raise. Nobody's gonna decide like, let's make your working conditions the best they can be. You take control. So you work for Dr. You Incorporated and you give them 8 hours of your time, but you're always in control. And some other people want to start private practices, insurance based. Some people want to do cash based. Some people want to do consulting, speaking, hosting events, products. Like it doesn't matter. Whatever you choose, though, We need to build a business system around it, right? And that's kind of where, we didn't get a business education, but we need one because now the healthcare space, there's so much competition. Before there wasn't. You could hang a shingle and they would come. Things have changed, and the loudest voice wins. And so, if you truly believe in what you do and the level of service you offer, then what you then want to do is be loud about it, is to talk about it, is to understand how to build a business system around it so it's profitable. I tell my team in my private practice, like, I never want to come to you and tell you we couldn't make payroll. So one of the best things I can do for this practice is stay profitable. I never want to tell my patients, "Oh, you have to go to the hospital clinic down the road because we're shutting our doors." So one of the best things I do for my patients is I stay profitable. Right? This is my moral obligation as a physician who loves her patients. So yeah, that's, kind of in a nutshell how we got here.
There was a headline the other day that a lot of ER physicians belong to staffing groups, and many of those are actually owned by venture capital companies, whose primary goal is to make money. And they couldn't make payroll. So all these ER doctors got a letter that, oh, sorry, your paycheck isn't coming this month. And it was like, what? And so some of them didn't know it. It's like, well, should we stay and work another month? Of course, they promised they're going to make it up. We'll pay as we go, week by week. But some of them would say, well, maybe I ought to just bail today. If I work another 6 months, that'll be 6 more months I don't get paid for. But I think the key statement you said is that things have changed. It's not a question of whether they may have changed or will change, or they changed. And if you're not and when you're talking to people, doctors really don't understand this. I mean, this goes way back when I was in private practice. We would negotiate with the hospital. We made these deals with the hospital, and then the hospital would just change its mind with some lame excuse. We've been working for 2 years with meetings all in our own time. We're going to do this, or we're going to be the director of this, and you'll pay us this time. And all of a sudden, that guy who we've been talking with, the vice president, gets promoted or leaves, and we get a new guy. And we say, well, we were planning to sign. Oh, yeah, well, that was the old guy. Or that doesn't matter anymore. It's like, well, we've invested months and months and months into this. And then just the other day, I was not complaining, but bringing it to the attention of the one of the people that pays me that we were really overwhelmed in the clinic, and it was very busy, and things needed to be made more efficient, more help, et cetera. And I said, we're so busy. And he goes, oh, well, that's great. Because all he's looking at is the bottom line. It's like, well, Dr. Wilner's working more, seeing more patients. This is great. There's a bottom line. The hospital's losing money anyway. So he's not looking at it the way, I mean, what's my interest? My interest is patient care, right? My job satisfaction somewhere on the list of things I want to address. But the main thing is I want to be able to deliver the kind of care that my patients deserve and that I think I know how to deliver. But that has to be translated into different words to ring the ears of your average. And we have very sympathetic administration, just in case any are listening. But that has to be, you have to talk differently. And in fact, the podcast that came out just before yours is talking about physicians who are getting an MBA from the University of Tennessee so that they can be entrepreneurs or advance in the hospital hierarchy or become venture capitalists or get money from venture capitalists for their own idea. But to learn the language of business, which you rightly point out, at least in my day, which was different than your day, but even in your day, was not addressed. There was no course on that. And I know the residents are at least a little bit tuned into that now, but I don't know how much formal instruction they get, or frankly want. When you're a doctor, one of the main reasons you choose to become a helping, caring person is you're not really interested in the business world and how can I squeeze another nickel, out of soy futures, right? That's not really what you're interested in, but it may be something you have to learn by necessity, if that's what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Yeah, the times have changed. We don't really have that. We don't have that liberty as much to not know about the business side of it. And truthfully, sometimes people say, I hate business. Business ruined medicine. And I'm like, but it didn't though. I mean, like business run by people who put profits before people, that ruined medicine.
Right.
But there is a business where you put people before profits, but it's like people and their profits. Like it's right next to it, right? Because times have changed so much. For instance, in the private practice world, there in 2021, 11,000 private practices either went out of business or sold to private equity. 11,000, right? And there are many private practice owners I would speak to, and they're running a practice, but they're needing to do locum to pay the bills for the practice. I'm like, okay, time out. We can learn to run the business of it so you can get rid of this job and you can have a life, or maybe you just need to do a job and leave the practice alone, right? Like in the beginning, you may need to do that, but we're talking 5 years in, 10 years, like,
Right.
we've seen people who are like, oh yeah, practice is great. We're doing 3.2 million in revenue every year. Great. But I'm working locum because I can't pay myself. Right. And to me, I'm like, so clearly something has to give because I am a strong believer that we have sacrificed too much to come to this point and still not have a life, right? Because if you think about it, high school, it's like, oh, you got to focus because you got to get into a good pre-med school. And then pre-med, oh, you got to focus and you have to give up all this stuff so you get into a good med school. Then you get into med school, oh, you have to have the best grade so you get into a good residency program. And then residency program, oh, but there's fellowship and there's only 2 spots in this great program you have to go to. And so you've sacrificed like over a decade, and then to come out of it and then you still have no control. You're still sacrificing like at some point, right? So the people I work with, I'm like, okay, the plan here is we're going to build a dream business and we're going to build a dream life and we're going to build them concurrently because we're done with the sacrifice. There's no end to it till you decide it's the end. But there's no true freedom if we don't figure out the financials. We live in an economic world. And that's the reality of it. And again, back in the day, we had monopoly. There was no Minute Clinic. There's no Walmart having clinics. There's no Walgreens clinics. There's no Amazon in healthcare. There's none of that. And so it was you could get away with it. But now it's such a competitive space, and physicians, we have some of the greatest trainings. Like, we know, like I can take your good care of this person, but the way it works is the loudest voice wins. And sometimes the loudest voice is not our voice because we're like, oh, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to seem like I'm promoting myself and all of that. I'm like, yeah, and that's why we're here. That's why this is happening. And so it's time for us to add another skill. And we learn the Krebs cycle. We intubate little babies. We replace hearts. We're really smart people. We can learn this too. It starts with a decision like, okay, I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to evolve. I'm going to stack on one other skill set, and that would be business skills. And it does change everything because with my private practice learning, like I could build a business system that works without me. I figured early on that I would live 9 lives at the same time. And so I said, I will give clinical medicine 10 years. That's what I want to give it. How am I going to do that? I don't know. But that's what I'm going to give it. And I'm not recommending people leave medicine. This is a me thing. And that's what I wanted to do. And so when I turned 40, by the time I turned 40, I was seeing patients a day a week because that's what I wanted to do. I have 4 children. I homeschool them. And I do all things EntreMD, and my practice still exists. I meet with my administrator once a week, and it's still running and it's still serving thousands of patients every year.
I hear from doctors that do locums, part-time, right? 3 days a week, 4 days a week, or a few months here, a few months there, how much they love medicine now that they are not overwhelmed by it, by doing it by choice. Like you say, being the one who's the decision maker, I think, you mentioned burnout earlier. I think a huge part of burnout is the loss of control. Doctors don't mind working 80 hours a week when it's your choice. But when someone's telling you got to do it, and those 80 hours feel like 160. But when you're doing it because you want to, and you're learning, then it's not hard at all. So making it your choice. I think that's also kind of the premise between the FIRE movement, right? financial independence, retire early. I've always had a problem with the retire early part. I mean, you're making a big investment. If the only reason to do all that is to get out, that's kind of short-sighted. But many people do that. But I think the financial independence part, very important, because then that allows you to make decisions on what you think is important, what you want to do, as opposed to what you have to do, or they're going to take your car away, which is, inconvenient, right? So okay. So in EntreMD, well, I got two questions. Before we get to that, first of all, just globally, we're talking to my residents now. Is there any future for private practice, or just forget about it and find something else to do? Academics or pharmaceuticals, or is private practice a reasonable thing to think about?
Yeah, private practice is still alive. However, it is alive if you play by a different set of rules. The old rules do not work because the old rules look like I start a practice, I care about the patients, I don't care about the money. As long as the biller works it out, there's enough money in the account to pay for the expenses and payroll, we're good. That doesn't work anymore because the way it works is a lean model. So we do have to pay attention to the money, period. And so the doctors I work with, they understand, like, if my schedule is not full, I have to be proactive and fill it. When people come to my office, yes, I do have to collect copays, deductibles, and old balances. Like, this is a thing that we do. We need to bill properly. Like the whole thing of, oh, I code all 99213s because I don't want to get an audit. Like we can't afford to do that. I never meet with my team. I don't cast vision. I don't hold them accountable. We don't even have metrics. I am the only revenue generator. I cannot tell you how any other role in my private practice generates revenue. Like that whole model doesn't work at all. And so what I find is that, yes, there's decreasing insurance reimbursement. Yes, the administrative burden is higher. Yes, the cost of delivery of service is higher. Yes, payroll is higher because we're in the middle of the Great Resignation. Those are all true. However, there are things that we have control over that if we control them, for many practices, they could add hundreds, plural, of thousands of dollars to their bottom line for work they already do, with the people they already have. But we don't look at the money. So there's so much loss, right? Like, so think about it, right? Like think about an ICU doc that does not look at the monitor. Like, what are the patient's vitals? Oh, we don't know. Like, we're always looking at the vitals. We're always making data-driven decisions, but we run private practices with no data. I don't know what my AR agent report is. I don't know how long it takes to get paid. I don't know what percentage of our co-pays we're collecting. I don't even meet with my biller. So that version, it does not work anymore. But if we will choose to be great clinicians and savvy entrepreneurs, then we can win. But that's the only way that happens.
All right. Now, you counsel a lot of physicians on how to do this. What would you say is the biggest challenge, the biggest obstacle for them to be profitable and fulfilled? Well, is there one thing that gets in the way, or is it different for everybody?
It's a lot of things, but it comes down to one thing, and that is resisting the evolution. Like, I have to change, but I don't want to change. I've always done it this way. That's uncomfortable. I've never done it before. I've never had a vision casting meeting. I don't want to hold my team accountable. So it's around, I don't want to change.
So you told them about the
nature.
dinosaurs, right? You told them what happened to the dinosaurs. They couldn't really adapt, and they're tough to find now.
I use Netflix, and I use Netflix as the story now.
What about Netflix? How does that story? What's the Netflix story that it replaced?
Well, there was Blockbusters.
Right. Yes. Okay. Blockbuster.
Right. And then Netflix came and they laughed them off. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's never going to work. And now nobody knows what Blockbusters is.
It's true, right? What's Blockbuster? Right?
What's
I remember
Blockbuster?
That was a stock that when it went public, there's no way this can fail. Everybody watches movies. No way I could fail. I used to go to the return the Blockbuster. I always had to pay fees because I was late. Remember
Because
that?
you're a
And
good doctor. Of course you
good
relate.
doctor. Right? Of course, I was late. Right. My residents probably don't even know what Blockbuster is. I asked them the other day. They definitely do not know who Marcus Welby is. And Marcus Welby, MD, was the solo practitioner that we all strive to be. And now nobody even knows who that is. So that model disappearing. So, okay. So what does EntreMD actually do? I mean, somebody gives you a call and said, "My practice sucks. I don't know what to do. Should I retire? I don't know what to do. Can you help?"
Yeah, so we help people in a number of ways. I'll tell you what they are because it all depends on where people are. So we have what we call a free MBA, and that's our podcast. And on our podcast, there's no fluff. We talk about, how to hire, how to fire, questions to ask at your interview, how to hold your team accountable, how to convert
Hmm.
your payroll from an expense to an investment, right? How to host those meetings. We talk about all of those things there. And some people, they want to start from there. It's free of charge. It's the EntreMD podcast. That's our free MBA. The second thing we do is that, we have a number of books because we put our frameworks in there. And so you mentioned earlier the Profitable Private Practice Playbook. And in that book, I picked out the 7 most common ways doctors leave money on the table every single day. And like, here are the 7 ways. Take this, take your practice administrator, read it, implement it. It's just magic for your business. But for some people, we're like, what would be perfect for you is the EntreMD Business School. So the EntreMD Business School is our year-long program. And what we do there is we help doctors do 4 things. We help them make the evolution from physician to physician entrepreneur, because we can habit stack. We can do that. We help them build dominant brands that position them as the one.
Hmm.
Like, this is the business that you go to. And I get it because, again, I was the introvert who was not going to do that. So I get, like the challenges around putting yourself out there and all of that. And we're professionals. We should do it in a certain way. But how do I do that professionally, confidently, all of that? We help them understand how to create revenue. Like, there's a framework to it. There's an algorithm, if you will. How do I create revenue? Am I going to roll over and play dead because there was a pandemic? Am I going to roll over and play dead because there's hyperinflation? Or do I know how to take this business from 0 to 6 figures to multiple 6 figures to 7 figures to multiple 7 figures? Do I know how to do that? And then finally, we show people how to build profitable teams. Because a lot of times in private practice, we just hire a bunch of people, have them do random tasks. And so the more people we hire, the smaller our profit margin is because nobody else is contributing to the bottom line. But how do I do where every role is a profit center? I know that almost sounds bad. Like, no, we take care of people, we're not profit centers. Yes. But if you do not fix the profit, you have to go out of business and you cannot take care of the people. So how do I bring people on in a way that for every role I bring on, we do better? So they're pulling their weight. So whatever they generate pays them, pays the overhead associated with them, and some profit for the practice. So it's a win-win-win. How do I do that? When you find a doctor who's made that transition, who understands how to build a dominant brand, create revenue, build profitable teams, what you end up with is a doctor who can multiply their impact, create financial freedom, and create time freedom. I
Mm-hmm.
have people who are like, I've been in private practice for 7 years. I've never taken more than a week off. And they're taking 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and they're more profitable because there is a way to do that. Right. And so that's what we help people do. So they have the dream business, they have the dream life, they have they have control. And they can enjoy being doctors. And you can choose. I want to work 5 days a week, 4 days a week, 3 days, whatever. You get to choose. But you can only choose if you build a business system, right? Like, that's the way that works. And they get to do it in a community of physicians like them, because physician entrepreneurship isn't mainstream yet. Sometimes you look weird. Sometimes people are like, when is enough enough? And like, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? And so you get to be in a community of people who are all doing that. And so you feel normal among the crazies. So it's absolutely amazing.
Well, this is kind of fascinating. I think it's nice that you have made this self-discovery over the last, it's got to be 15 years at least, right? To get where you are from where it suddenly dawned on you that this was not really working, and that you're willing to share what you've learned with the physician community. I think one thing that we don't really stress enough is that there's a big demand, right? I mean, we have something to offer as physicians that the world needs, right? There's a physician shortage. So it's not like we're trying to force ourselves, on the market. The market is there, right? And in fact, as we get more treatments and make more discoveries, the market grows. As a neurologist, we used to see Alzheimer patients who go, well, it looks like Alzheimer's, that's too bad. And now there's a lot of options and that are very energy and financially intensive, but may actually help the patients. And those are appearing almost at least on a yearly basis, if not every 6 months, there's new options to learn about, but something else to offer people, otherwise known as the marketplace, right? So, physicians should not be discouraged because the big part of selling something is that somebody wants to buy it, right? But we have that. We have the market. So it's a matter of positioning yourself and packaging, and we've got the goods, right? The quality is there. It's all the other stuff that's kind of frivolous, right, in the physician's mind, I think, but does make a difference to the bottom line, without which, the wheels don't turn. Yeah, my dad was a certified public accountant, not a
Mm.
physician, and I never had any interest whatsoever. I would just give dad my tax return, and he would give it back, and I would sign it. It was like I didn't want to know, but well, he passed away 6 or 7 years ago, and then all of a sudden I had to figure all this stuff out. So I had sort of a condensed and rapid learning curve. But I realized that these things, are pretty important. And it's great that you're there as a resource. Well, as we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I just love to say, like, I know that we are in one of the most challenging times for physicians. Like, that's the space that we find ourselves in. But it also is the beginning of the best of times for us. But it does require our evolution. Like, whatever you do, start embracing it. And, if you're listening to a podcast like this, that's amazing. There's an EntreMD podcast, but start exploring that, start putting your foot in the water because there's so much more. Literally, we're like a set of skills away from a career that we didn't even know we could have, and it's those business skills. And like, yeah, come subscribe to the podcast, and we talk shop all day, every day. And if you're a private practice, grab a book. If you're not, we have other books that are not specifically for private practice, but I wish every physician could think this way. This is the best of times. I just need to evolve. I just need to evolve to be a part of it. Yeah, it's not all bad, not at all.
I like that. Dr. Una, thanks for joining me on The Art of Medicine.
Thank you so much for having me. And I know I said this offline, but thank you so much for what you do. There're just not enough pictures of what is possible. And so thank you. We appreciate you.
Appreciate that. Before we close, I'd like to give another thanks to our sponsor, locumstory.com, a resource where providers can get real, unbiased answers about locum tenens. I'm Dr. Andrew Wilner. See you next time. This program is hosted, edited, and produced by Andrew Wilner, MD, FACP, FAAN. Guests receive no financial compensation for their appearance on The Art of Medicine. Andrew Wilner, MD, is Associate Professor of Neurology at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, Memphis, Tennessee. Views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this program belong solely to Dr. Wilner and his guests and not necessarily to their employers, organizations, or other group or individual. While this program intends to be informative, it is meant for entertainment purposes only. The Art of Medicine does not offer professional financial, legal, or medical advice. Dr. Wilner and his guests assume no responsibility or liability for any damages, financial or otherwise, that arise in connection with consuming this program's content. Thanks for watching. For more episodes of The Art of Medicine, please subscribe. www.andrewwilner.com